Okay, for number 1, it's just asking you to add these two numbers together, and because they're a different sign, you know that the negatives are actually going to cancel out the positives, because a positive and a negative cancel each other out. So those 14 negatives will cancel out 14 of those positives, so that you're left with a positive 6. Number 2, 3 times 7 is 21, and a negative times a negative is a positive, so that is a positive 21. Number 3, if you've got 4 minus 12, think about it. So you've got $4, but you actually go down 12. So that is obviously going to take you into the negatives because you don't have enough to go down 12. So that will be a negative 8. And number 4, which of the following will result in a negative number? Remember that a positive can be made by either 2 positives or 2 negatives. So that means that A would be a positive because you've got 2 negatives. So that's not the one we're looking for because we're looking for a negative. C will be 2 negatives, which will also make a positive. D also has 2 negatives that'll make a positive. So that means that B is the one that we are looking for because it only has 1 negative. This section, so Sarah's credit card statement shows that she owes $275. So that's minus $275. She made a payment for $125, so that means that she paid off some of it. So now her new balance, she only owes $150. Then she charged $30 for a new sweater, which means now she's down another $30. So that is a total of negative $180 that she has on her credit card. And she returned a pair of pants that she had charged earlier for $40. So we're going to take $40 off of what she owes. So that means it's a total of negative $140. And finally, then she charged $10 for lunch. So that's another 10. So her final balance is $150. Number 6 and number 7 are just simplifying fractions. And they're both even numbers. So that means that we're just going to divide each of them by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So number 6 is 1/4. Number 7, we can divide them both by 5. So that's what I'm going to do. 15 divided by 5. Is 3, and 35 divided by 5 is 7. So the simplified fraction should be 3/7. Number 8 is an order of operations question. So remember our please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. So parentheses, we don't have any parentheses, so we're not going to do that first. I do have an exponent though, which I'm going to take care of right here. 4 squared means 4 times 4. So that's going to be 16. So I'm going to add, so I'm going to make that 16, and then I'm going to bring everything else down. So then I've got to do multiplying and dividing next, and this is the only one that I have. So I'm going to do 9 divided by 3, which is 3. Bring everything else down. Now, remember, you don't necessarily add before you subtract, but you just do adding and subtracting from left to right. Either way, though, it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to add first. So 5 plus 16 is 21. And then 21 minus 3 means that I get 18 for my final answer. For number 9, I've got distributive property that I need to do. So I'm going to do negative 3 times x, which is negative 3x. And then negative 3 times negative 8, a negative times a negative, that is a positive 24. And I can't combine x or 24, so that is as simple as it's going to get. Number 10, I have a couple of different sets of distributive property I need to do. So I'm going to do the first one. So 5 times 2x is 10x. And then 5 times 1 is 5, and everything's positive. Here, I've got a negative 3 times x, which means that's going to be a minus 3x. And negative 3 times negative 8 is going to give me plus 24. A lot of you guys stopped here on the test for some reason. Remember, you can't stop. You've got to combine like terms. So I've got 10x and 3x, which is going to leave me with a 7x. Then I have 5 plus 24, which is going to give me plus 29. And there, I can't combine a 7x and a 29, so that is as simple as it's going to get. Okay, next begins the calculator section of the test, and it's asking me to find the mean of that set of data. Now, if I wanted to do it by hand, I certainly could. I would simply add all the numbers together, and I would divide by 7 because there are 7 numbers in the data set. But I'm going to use my graphing calculator to do it for me. And remember how you do that. You hit Stat and then hit Enter to do Edit. I'm going to scroll up to my list 1 and up to the heading to highlight the L1. So I can hit Clear, Enter, and just clear out those numbers. Then I'm going to type them in. So now that I've typed all those numbers into my L1, I'm going to hit Stat. I'm going to scroll over to Calc, hit Enter for one variable statistics. Make sure it's set to my L1 because that's where I put the numbers, and it's not. So I need to hit second, and then where the L1 is, right above the 1. Hit Enter, Enter, and calculate. So there's all those numbers given for me. So again, I could have just added all the numbers together and divided by 7 to get the mean, but my calculator gives it to me right there. So my mean is 73.9 if I rounded correctly, because okay, so 73.9 because I'm going to round to 1 decimal place, and so I'm going to round that 8 up to a 9. So for the mean, I'm going to type in 73.9, and again, I just got that from my calculator giving it to me. The median, I could have done it by hand, but I can just as easily, because I could do that, I could have put them in an order from least to greatest and find the one in the middle, or I can just scroll down here on my calculator and see that MED, median, is 84, that it literally gave me the median right there. Okay, so I'm going to type 84. Several of us missed the mode because the mode is not given to you on the calculator. You just have to know that that is the one that turns up the most. And a lot of you guys picked 88 because they were right next to each other. But then what you didn't notice is that you also had two 82s also. So in this case, there were actually 2 modes. So you should have put 82 and 88. Your Q1, remember, you could have lined up your numbers from least to greatest, found the median, and then found the median of the lower half of your data. But the Q1 is given to you right there by the graphing calculator also. Same thing for the Q3. The Q3 is also given to you right there by the graphing calculator. So I'm going to type what my calculator just gave me, 81 and 83. Now, or I'm sorry, 88, sorry. Now, IQR, remember that's interquartile range, is not given to me from my calculator, but it's simply my Q3 minus my Q1. So in this case, it'd be 88 minus 81, which is 7. And then last but not least, the standard deviation is given to me by my graphing calculator. So I'm going to scroll back up here. And remember, the standard deviation is that number right there. So you should have put somewhere around 27. Okay, for number 12, probability. So Mr. Hale has a bag of marbles. What is the probability he's going to pull a green? Well, he has 3 green, and there's a total of 15 marbles in the bag. So that's 3 out of 15. Some of you did not simplify your fraction, and you lost a little half a point for that, because you can simplify by dividing both of those numbers by 3. So that probability is 1 over 5. And then the probability that it does not pull a blue marble. So again, he's got 15 marbles, and then if 7 of them are blue, that means that 8 of them are not blue. And 8 over 5 does not simplify because there's nothing that you can divide 18 and 15 by and for it to be a common factor. So that's as simple as it's going to get. Okay, for number 13, let's look for all the statements that are true about the double box and whisker plots. So it says half of the test scores in Mr. Wolf's class are between 85 and 95. So if we look up here in Mr. Wolf's class, where the 85 and the 95 is, look right here, and his box does go between 85 and 95. And remember, each section of the box is 25%. So 25% plus another 25% means that 50% of his scores do fall between 85 and 95. 50% is the same thing as half. So that is one statement that is true. So now let's look at B. It says 25% of the test scores in Mr. Fox's class are 80 or above. So Mr. Fox's class, 80 and above. So 80, that middle of your box, that's your median. Okay, so that's not 25% of your scores. This is 25% of your scores, one little section. 80 and above, in this case, is 25% plus another 25%. So that is 50%. Okay, so that means that that one is not correct. C says the medians are the same. Well, here's the median for Mr. Fox. There's the median for Mr. Wolf, the middle of the box, so they're not the same. That one is not true either. D says the test scores in Mr. Fox's class are more varied. So remember, that means that more varied means more spread out. Mr. Fox's class goes all the way from 60 to 100, whereas Mr. Wolf's class only goes from like 67 to 100. So Mr. Fox's class is definitely more spread out, so that is true. And finally, 75% of the test scores in Mr. Wolf's class are 85 or above. So let's look at Mr. Wolf's class. Let's look for 85. So 85 is right here on his box and whisker plot, right there. So if we look here, so that part of the box is 25, that part is 25, and that part is 25. 25 plus 25 plus 25 is 75% of the test scores. So we do, in fact, have test scores. 75% of them are 85 or above.